Zambia. Namba mune we mina Zambia. We shiti shetale. Gawa mono mwani aisa no lupio renge.
Hello comrades and friends, my name is Mainda Simataa. I'm the General Secretary of ELA, the Economic Liberation Association, a movement founded in Zambia and championing for the economic liberation of Zambia. Today I want to talk about the 10-point plan which we have as the Economic Liberation Association. It is a plan that informs all our decisions, all our campaigns, and all our agendas and all our mobilization programs. So it's important for you as a member or somebody who's interested in joining ELA, and I must insist that if you're a Zambian who cares about the economic situation in Zambia, if you're a Zambian who wants economic freedom, you want prosperity, you want to realize your dreams, you must, as a matter of fact, join the Economic Liberation Association, because there is nothing like it on the political market. All these other political parties that you see, these politicians that you see, they are all capitalists. They are funded and founded in order to preserve the status quo of capitalism, where we've got foreigners come here, take over our mines, our cement and sugar plantations, take over all our economic systems and own our money. These are the kind of politicians that you have prevailing at the moment. However, the Economic Liberation Association is different, because what we want is an economic revolution. What we want is Zambians themselves to possess and own and control their own resources in terms of mining, land, banking, and all the critical commanding heights of the economy. So let me delve straight into the 10-point plan of the Economic Liberation Association. I'll run through it first before I give the details. So number 1 is liberate and repossess all land from foreigners. Number 2, cancel all IMF loans. Number 3, nationalize all mines or control 51% of them, or control 51% ownership in them rather. Number 4, prioritize agriculture as the main economic activity. Number 5, ban all foreign imports that disadvantage our local manufacturers, our Zambian businessmen and women. Number 6, deport all Indians and Chinese and other nationals who abuse our resources and abuse our workers. Number 7, make education and healthcare free for all Zambians. Number 8, make employment or empowerment a right for all. Number 9, boost energy production and begin to industrialize the nation. Number 10, create a social welfare society where the vulnerable, those who cannot take care of themselves, can be taken care of by the state. Those in brief are the 10 points that guide and inform the direction of the Economic Liberation Association. So let me go into details now and explain why we have picked out these 10 and why these 10 are important if Zambia is truly going to be economically liberated, if her people are going to see a better life, if her people are going to have access to education and healthcare, if they are going to have better opportunities in employment and business, if they are going to be the commanders and holders of their own destiny. So number 1, liberate and repossess all land from foreigners. Land is a very, very important asset. As a matter of fact, it's the most important asset for any people. Without land, you are a refugee. Without land, you are a nomad. Without land, you are a citizen of no nation. We are tied to land. We are called Zambian because we live on a land that we have named Zambia. So it's very important that we must protect our land. The struggle for independence in the 60s was a struggle for land. Remember, the people who colonized this country, the number 1 thing that they came for was the land, the resources on the land. Today they are still here. What do they want? It is the resources on the land. So as a policy, we in the Economic Liberation Association, a movement for economic freedom, believe that if this country is going to be free, we must repossess all the land that has been taken away from us. And with this includes even the repossession of the facilities that have been built on our land. Because without land, we can't be called a free people. So that is why number 1 is important, liberation of land and repossession of all land from foreigners especially. The only people entitled to own land in Zambia are the Zambians themselves and no one else. The rest can only rent land for a small period of time, but they cannot own land and they cannot buy land. Land in Zambia is not for sale. Zambia itself is not for sale. Zambia belongs to Zambians. Point number 2, cancellation of all IMF loans. You must realize that a country that is always in debt, a country that is heavily indebted, cannot progress. because everything that you do in terms of work, in terms of production, the money that you make, the profit that is generated goes back to pay these loans. A pure example, a relevant example can be perhaps a home setting where the breadwinner is in debt. You all know what happens. The moment his salary comes, 3/4 of it, or maybe even all of it, goes to pay his debtor. What remains? Nothing. At the end of the day, the children stop going to school, there is hunger in the home, there is nothing that he can use to sustain himself and his family. So in the same way, the nation is a bigger family, and if we are going to be inundated with debts, we are going to have problems with meeting the needs that we have, the needs of education, the needs of health, the needs of food, housing, clothing, all the essential amenities that a human being needs to survive and lead a meaningful life. They will be jeopardized, they will be compromised. That's why we insist to say loans must be cancelled. At present, Zambia owes the IMF $13 billion, and they are yet to borrow another $2.7 billion. That means the amount of money that the government has to spend every year in debt servicing is going to increase, and this squeezing of the government is going to reflect itself in the squeezing of the people as well. Taxes will rise. As you have seen, taxes are rising like no man's business. Fuel prices are rising, electricity tariffs are rising, toll gates have been formed, taxes are everywhere, parking fees, you drive, you pay, everything goes up, inflation is up, the dollar is always rising. What causes this is debt. So a nation that is under debt is not a sovereign nation, it is not a free nation. It is a nation that will always be controlled directly or indirectly by the people who lend us money. And those people who lend us this money so that they can enslave us are the IMF. That is why we say all debts must be cancelled, because this country has its own resources and it has the potential to generate resources to sustain itself. And that takes me to point number 3. Nationalization of all mines or control of 51% shareholding in them. Our mines are the greatest resources we have. If these mines were managed and owned by Zambians, if they were managed and owned by the Zambian people themselves, or if the Zambian people owned the majority of shares in these mines, believe me we don't need to borrow. There would have been no need to go to the IMF every day with a begging bowl. Every time the budget comes, we are saying extend funding, we need this. That thing would not have been there. Zambia has the potential to generate its own resources, but this can only take place if we nationalize the mines. At present, the mines are privately owned, and that means that the generation of profits that are made in those mines are private profits, and all these profits that are made are externalized. We can't allow such a situation if we want to progress as Zambians. If we want to be free, such a situation cannot be allowed. The mines must be taken back into Zambian ownership. 51% or more shares must be owned by the Zambian public, so that from this monies can be generated. The mines currently generate over $10 billion every year. That is enough money to sustain us, to pay for our free education, free health, build social facilities for the people, recreational facilities, training facilities. It is enough for us even to undertake an industrialization agenda. Point number 5, ban all foreign imports that disadvantage our local manufacturers. You must realize that if Zambian entrepreneurs are going to succeed, if Zambian manufacturers are going to succeed, we must stop importing the things that we are able to produce. Because when we import things that we are able to produce, what we are doing is that we are suffocating our own industries, most of whom are struggling to run. So as a policy, the ELA, the Economic Liberation Association, says no to foreign imports that we can produce. We cannot be importing chickens, we cannot be importing toothpicks, we cannot be importing vegetables, we cannot be importing anything else that we are able to produce ourselves. We must put in protectionist measures to protect our own people so that they can thrive in their own business. So we have a policy of banning all foreign imports that disadvantage our local manufacturers and entrepreneurs. We want business in Zambia to thrive. We want the Zambian entrepreneur to thrive by giving him wide enough a market for him to sell his produce. Point number 6, the deportation of all Indians and Chinese who abuse Zambians. This is another critical point. We have seen these people who have come in, these foreigners, the Chinese, the Indians, they have come in their thousands. And these are the people who've got sufficient capital to buy anything that they want, land, houses, all sorts of properties. But we have seen a dangerous developing trend where most Zambians have become the slaves of these people. So we are saying that if the Chinese and the Indian cannot respect the Zambian, if they cannot pay the Zambian what is due to him, if they cannot allow Zambians to participate in sectors which they have dominated and monopolized, then we are sorry to say they have to go back to China they have to go back to India. If they are going to stay in Zambia, they must play by the rules which we set. And priority is that the Zambian must be given opportunity and advantage over the foreigner. It does not make sense for a Zambian to continue working for a foreigner while a foreigner becomes master in his country. No. The Zambian must be master, he must be leader in his own country. The foreigner can only be a partner or a worker for the Zambian. That is what we want. Point number 7. Education and healthcare must be free. This is a non-negotiable like all the other points. Education is a right, it's a human right. Health is a human right. There is no way we can have a situation where we say only those who are rich can have decent education. Then what are we doing to the poor? We are condemning them to death. We are condemning them to ignorance. To say that a person can only receive medical treatment if they can afford expensive treatment is inhuman and it's immoral. That's why we say education and health must be free and accessible to all. And when we say free, we mean that these services must be at the expense of government, because Zambians contribute taxes and those taxes must be used for the benefit of the people. Point number 8. Make employment or empowerment a right for all. In other developed countries if you are not employed, the government has a duty to pay you unemployment benefits because they have failed to provide you with the opportunity to work. You want to work, you've got the qualification, you've been to school, you are looking for employment, and you need employment in order to survive. So if we cannot have a situation in this country, if we cannot have a situation where people who are unemployed are somehow supported or empowered by the government of the day, then I don't know where we're going. Poverty will continue to rise, and that's why we're saying in economic liberation that employment is not a privilege. Employment is a right for every human being, because for you to have a meaningful life, you have to have a job so that you are able to generate an income to pay your rent, to buy your food, your clothes, to pay for your children's school fees and healthcare fees. And these things are currently being paid for, and that's why we say let healthcare and education be free, so that the demands, or rather the burdens of the breadwinners, can be reduced to other things, and they can have some savings, so that the remainder of their disposable income can be used to other things such as investment or going into business. So that is why we're saying employment is a right. If you are not employed by the government must pay you unemployment benefits. This is not fantasy. This happens in Sweden and all the Scandinavian countries, in Britain and the United States. People who are unemployed go to the welfare line, where they are given a certain amount of money to sustain themselves as human beings. We need to eat, we need to wear clothes, we need to feed, we need housing. Point number 10. Boost energy production and industrialize. Zambia is a backward country at the moment because we have not industrialized. Our economy can be described as primitive. The only thing that we do in this country is produce raw materials that we export to other countries, who later process those things into finished goods and later export them back to us at very expensive prices. We cannot continue to live like other Zambians if we want to develop. We must harness our own resources, be able not just to dig up raw materials but also to convert these raw materials such as copper or cotton into finished goods that we can later sell to ourselves. And if we produce these things ourselves, if we process them into finished goods, they will be more affordable to our people. But to be able to industrialize, you must have the capacity to produce energy, electricity, because industry run on power. So currently you know that there is an energy crisis. There are problems at ZESCO. Some are saying privatize ZESCO, some are saying rearrange it, some are saying commercialize it. Others are saying that ZESCO does not have the capacity to provide us with energy. But we as the ELA, we believe ZESCO is still a viable company. The only thing that needs to be done is to remove political interference and to remove the IMF from ZESCO, because the IMF are trying to buy up ZESCO because they realize it's a viable company. So if we are able to restructure ZESCO in a way that cadres are not the ones who are directors but rather professionals, ZESCO can be viable, and the income that is generated from it. By the way, in terms of income, the mines must all pay their dues in terms of electricity, because these guys use electricity which is worth $150 million every year, yet they only pay $50 million to ZESCO. As a result, ZESCO makes a net loss of $100 million every year, and that is the loss that the government of Zambia wants to burden now on the domestic consumers, the ordinary people who only use power for their television set and radio. That is unacceptable. ZESCO has the capacity to generate income if people like the mining companies pay their dues in terms of bills. Point number 10. Point number 10, of course, I've already addressed it. It's the creation of, I'm yet to address it rather. It's the creation of social welfare security. In a truly socialist state, as you know, socialism is our ideology, we must be able to support the poor and the vulnerable. People who are disadvantaged or people who are disabled should not have to die. They should not have to become beggars on the streets. Children should not have to become street children because they are orphans. People who cannot take care of themselves for one reason or another must be taken care of by the state, and that's why a social welfare policy is very, very important. The children, the aged, or those who are disabled of one reason or another are unable to sustain themselves must be taken care of, and that's why as ELA, point number 10 suggests a social welfare safety net. For those that are unemployed, employment benefits must be paid to them. The children who are orphaned must be taken care of by the state. The elderly who have worked and can no longer be able to take care of themselves must be supported, not to be consigned to old people's home, which are homes of the destitute. No, let us treat our senior citizens and our young people with the dignity that they deserve. So that sums up our 10-point program as ELA. That is what we believe in. If you're going to join ELA, if you're joining ELA or you want to know about ELA, that is the most crucial thing that you have to know about our 10-point program. And that is what we are working towards. We want a Zambia that will have these 10-point programs implemented. And it's not just for us to ask politicians of the day to implement them. No, it is for us to implement them ourselves, because we are the leaders of today. We are the ones who have the political will to change things. We are the ones who are feeling the pinch of poverty, the lack of opportunities, unemployment, social and economic injustice, the lack of entrepreneur empowerment in our country. We are the ones feeling the pinch. So we are the ones to make a difference. Like I always say, ask yourself what you can do for your country, rather than ask what the country can do for yourselves. We must make a difference. We must not despair. Change is coming, change is inevitable, and acting together, uniting for one common purpose, we can win. Until the next time, my name is Mainda Simataa, General Secretary of the Economic Liberation Association. Please do get in touch with us on Facebook. You can link up with us there. Go to our page, Economic Liberation Association-ELA. Drop us something in our inbox if you want to be a part of this change. And you must be a part of this change, because this association has been formed to inform you and encourage you and inspire you to become an agent of change in this country. Thank you very much. A luta continua, the struggle continues, and victory is certain.